The house I shouldn't have entered, I used to laugh at ghost stories. Or just campfire tales, meant to keep kids awake at night, stories told by people who wanted attention or by locals trying to scare off trespassers. At least that's what I thought. I never believed in haunted houses, cursed families, or whispers in the dark. But everything changed the night I stepped into the Holloway house. The house had always been there, perched on the hill like a rotting crown above the town. Everyone called it that place. The Holloways had lived there decades ago until they suddenly vanished. No goodbyes, no moving trucks, no trace. Just gone. People claimed they heard screams in the middle of the night. Some swore they saw faces peering through the upstairs windows long after the family disappeared, but no one went in. Not really, except me. It started as a dare, of course. My friends were all standing around the edge of the woods when the idea came up. Someone mentioned the Holloway house, and the teasing began. "Bet you wouldn't last an hour in there," one of them said, smirking. I should have laughed it off, but I couldn't. My pride wouldn't let me. I had to prove I wasn't scared, so I agreed. 1 hour inside, then I'd come out and show them there was nothing to be afraid of. They drove me up the hill, headlights cutting through the dark, until the house loomed into view. Even from the car, it looked wrong. The windows were hollow, like blackened eyes. The siding was gray and warped, bowing outward as if the house itself were breathing. They stopped at the edge of the yard, the weeds so tall they brushed against the bumper. The moment I stepped out, the air felt different. Heavy, too still. My friends called out encouragement, but their voices sounded far away. When their car rolled back down the hill, I was alone. Completely alone. The yard was overgrown, tangled with weeds and brittle trees. I pushed through them toward the porch, which sagged beneath my weight. Every step groaned like a warning. The front door was half open, swinging slightly as though it had been waiting for me. Lifted my flashlight and stepped inside. The air was thick, stale, and choking, as though I'd entered a place that hadn't been touched for centuries. The smell was unbearable, a mix of rot, mildew, and something metallic that clung to the back of my throat. My light swept across the living room, where furniture sat beneath dusty sheets like bodies wrapped for burial. Family portraits still clung to the walls, though the glass was cracked and the faces beneath the dust looked blurred, distorted. For a moment, I felt stupid. It was just an old house. Empty. Forgotten. What could possibly be scary about it? But then the silence pressed in, and I realized how unnatural it was. No insects. No wind rattling through cracks, no distant cars from the town below. Just silence. I moved into the kitchen. My beam caught a table still set with plates and silverware, though everything was coated in decades of dust. A child's high chair leaned against the wall, and on the tray was a small spoon. Something about it felt wrong, too preserved, as though someone had just set it down minutes ago. I shivered and forced myself toward the staircase. Each step groaned as I climbed, the sound echoing through the hollow halls. Halfway up, I heard it. A whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind seeping through the cracks, but it wasn't. It was close. Too close. A faint hiss like someone breathing words directly into my ear. I froze, flashlight trembling in my hand, my heart slamming against my ribs. "Hello?" My own voice sounded weak, shaky. Silence. Then the whisper came again. Longer this time, though I couldn't make out the words. I swallowed hard. My body screamed at me to turn around, to leave while I still could. But the thought of facing my friends, of admitting I'd panicked halfway through, forced me to keep going. Step by step, I climbed until I reached the top of the stairs. The hallway stretched long and narrow, lined with closed doors. The wallpaper was peeling, patterned with faded flowers that seemed to twist and writhe in the shadows. The air was colder here. My breath fogged faintly in the beam of light. I opened the first door on the left. It was a bedroom. The bed was neatly made, though the sheets were yellowed and brittle with age. A doll sat propped on the pillow, its glass eyes cracked, but still watching me. My stomach turned and I quickly shut the door. The second door was worse. Much worse. The walls inside were covered with crayon drawings. Childlike, yes, but wrong. Figures loomed in the picture's dark shapes with hollow faces towering over small stick figures. Red scribbles slashed across the walls, jagged and violent, like bloodstains frozen in time. And in one corner, words had been scrawled over and over again in shaky letters. "It's still here. It's still here. It's still here." The longer I stared, the colder I felt, like the room itself was watching me. I staggered back into the hallway, gripping my flashlight tighter. That's when I heard it again. A creak. At the far end of the hall, a door was slowly opening. Inch by inch, the black gap widened, the sound scraping through the silence. My beam shook as I raised it, just in time to see the door stop. Wide enough for something to be watching me. The whispers returned. Louder now, dozens of them, layered over each other, hissing words I couldn't understand. They slithered into my ears, my head, until I felt dizzy. And then I knew. I wasn't alone in that house. Something was in there with me. The thing that wouldn't let me leave? I stood frozen at the end of that hallway, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The door had stopped moving, but the whispers didn't. They slithered through the air, curling into my ears, sinking deep into my chest. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't move. Finally, I forced my legs to obey. I staggered backward, my light never leaving that cracked doorway. The floor groaned beneath me, loud enough to make the whispers pause for a split second as if the house itself was listening. And then the door slammed shut. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. My flashlight flickered wildly, and I swear I saw something just for a moment in that hallway. A shadow taller than the doorway stretched wrong, as if it didn't belong to anything human. That broke me. I spun and bolted for the stairs. My boots pounded against the wood, echoing in the suffocating stillness. Halfway down, my flashlight died. The beam sputtered out, plunging me into total darkness. I smacked it against my palm, desperate, and it flared weakly to life against just long enough for me to see the bottom of the staircase. Someone was standing there. I only caught a glimpse. A figure, tall and still, its head tilted as though it was watching me run toward it. Its body was more shadow than flesh, its edges blurred, but I saw the eyes. God help me, I saw them white, glowing and fixed on me. I stumbled back, nearly tumbling down the stairs, but when I blinked, it was gone. The bottom of the stairs was empty again. I didn't care. I wasn't stopping. I leaped the last few steps and ran for the door, the front entrance still hanging open like salvation. My chest burned, my lungs screaming for air. I threw myself at the doorway and slammed into something solid. The door wasn't open anymore. The wood I'd seen hanging wide when I came in was now sealed tight, the knob cold and unmoving under my hand. I twisted it so hard my wrist ached, but it didn't budge. Behind me, the whispers started again. This time, they weren't far away. They were right behind me. I turned slowly, pressing my back against the locked door. My flashlight quivered in my grip, the beam darting across the room. The furniture loomed like shrouded figures, their dust-covered sheets shifting as if something underneath them was breathing. The clock on the wall ticked once sharp, mechanical, and then stopped again, the sound echoing far too long in the silence. "Let me out," I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was begging. The air grew colder, heavy enough that my breath fogged in front of me. My flashlight dimmed again, shadows pressing in from all sides, and then I heard it a laugh, not loud, not human. It was low and broken, like someone choking on glass, echoing through the walls. Panic took over. I tore through the house, running from room to room, searching for another way out. Windows were sealed shut, their glass grimy and unbreakable no matter how hard I slammed my shoulder against them. Back doors wouldn't budge. Even the cellar door refused to open, as if the house itself was alive and mocking me. I ended up back in the kitchen, gasping for air. The spoon was still on the high-care tray, only now it wasn't clean. It dripped. A thick, dark liquid clung to its edge, slowly trailing down like blood. My stomach turned. I stumbled back, knocking against the table, and the plates rattled. That's when I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, heavy, one after another. I knew I wasn't alone. I knew it had followed me down. The whispers swelled again, overlapping, desperate, until I could almost understand them. Stay, 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 stay. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the door down with my bare hands. But then I made the mistake of looking at the window above the sink, Something was standing outside, its face pressed against the glass, pale and stretched thin, with those same glowing white eyes. But I was on the first floor. The yard was overgrown outside. That thing should have been standing on the ground. Instead, it hovered, head level with mine, staring in as if waiting for me to notice. I dropped my flashlight. The beam rolled across the kitchen floor, shadows bending unnaturally as if drawn toward the windows. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could do was run. I fled the kitchen, sprinting back through the hall, scrambled up the stairs again, thinking maybe I could find another way out through the upper floor. My chest heaved, my legs burned, but adrenaline pushed me on. At the top, the hallway was waiting. Only now, every door stood wide open. Blackness gaped inside each room, and the drawings on the wall seemed to move. The hollow-faced figures crawling closer with every flicker of my dying light. The whispers grew deafening, the voices now chanting in unison. It's still here, it's still here, it's still here. I stumbled backward until I hit the wall, clutching the peeling wallpaper for support. My flashlight gave one final flicker and died for good. The house fell silent. And in that silence, I finally heard the truth. There weren't just whispers anymore. There was breathing, slow, deep, right beside me.